Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining me for another chat with Byron. Today, we're going to be talking about resilience. And there are a couple things I want to kind of share today as it pertains to this. But let's just go ahead and start with this Winston Churchill quote, which I think is really great. He says, and by the way, I had a friend who has since passed away that was a kind of a Winston Churchill speech expert. And he believed that Winston Churchill was one of the best speech writers ever. And I don't know if it was actually because, today, like when our president gives a speech, he doesn't write that speech. And it's been that way for a long time. There are people that are around our elected officials that really pretty much do all the writing. But I think that my friend was saying that Winston Churchill actually had written most of his speeches. And maybe if someone watches this and wants to kind of inform me on what's true or not, I'd appreciate that to be informed. He says this, he says, never give in, never give in. So he didn't care about repeating himself because he repeats himself again. He says, never, 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 in nothing, great or small, large or petty, never give in, except to convictions of honor and good sense. So that is today, the theme is this idea of resilience. And then I kind of want to kind of frame it with this. Resilience can be understood as the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. It is a kind of toughness or fortitude. However, this definition only scratches the surface. At a deeper level, resilience is about thriving in the face of adversity, not just surviving. It involves adapting to challenges, learning from failures, and emerging stronger than before. Coping with setbacks and challenges requires resilience, self-awareness, and problem-solving skills. It also involves acknowledging the challenge, reframing the situation, and developing a plan to move forward. So today we're going to kind of take a deeper dive into resilience, because everyone knows what it's like to be faced with challenges. So the idea that resilience is our capacity to kind of spring back. So it's almost like resilience gives us ability. It's like a spring-like action. It gives us the ability to spring back. And I like this. I mean, this is something I wrote, but and this is also in the PDF for resilience that if you want, you can certainly have. The point is that the idea that resilience is about thriving in the face of adversity. So adversity is kind of a given. The struggle and the challenge is a given. It's having the determination and having the attitude and the mindset that you will be resilient and that you are going to be okay and you're going to figure out a way to move forward. Because that's really the bottom line, is how to move forward, how to figure out what is or what could be your next best step. And I'm not talking about like you use the alphabet there's 26 letters, A through Z. You don't have to have A through Z figured out. You really, in life, you really only need to have a few steps, A, B, C, maybe D. But really, if you just have A and B figured out and you just simply go with that, you figure out your next step A, or figuring out your next step B, and then you figure out your next step C. You don't have to go much deeper. So the idea of kind of being overwhelmed with too much information, we talked about that last week. You can get stuck with kind of paralysis by analysis. You have too much information. So in order to be resilient, everyone faces struggles, difficulties, and setbacks. It's really having the mindset and the kind of the fortitude, the strength, in order to want to have the resilience to figure out what your next steps are. But fortitude in and of itself isn't necessarily always your best option. And I'm going to talk, if we have time today, I'm going to talk a little bit about that at the end. There are these three options you have, and we'll talk about those options. And certainly fortitude's one, but I think you can be resilient and also just kind of being open. So we'll talk about that when we get to that point. But I want you to know that resilience is a skill. This is actually something that you can improve upon on a regular basis. You do not need to go to school. You do not need to go through any kind of special training. You can have resilience by simply choosing to have resilience and building the skills that you need in order to become more resilient. So we've talked about the idea of, and again, I'm gonna share this later, but the idea of what is flow, and I'm just going to try to find a document here really quick so I can show you what I mean by this. It's this one right here. This is probably, in my opinion, the best descriptor or little graphic on anywhere. And this is actually from this gentleman passed away a few years ago. His name is Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and he is a Hungarian-born behavioral scientist that really coined the idea of what flow is. So resilience is really the idea of recognizing that there are situationally, you need to increase your challenge or you need to increase your skill. Now, when you have a situation where you are absolutely, you are tested to the end of your capabilities, you don't have any more skills. That's where we need to be living our life, where we don't have the skills to do what we're doing, because we're in that flow channel. We have to increase our skills to get there. And if you don't have the skills, you'll feel anxiety. And if you don't have enough challenge that is challenging, you're going to feel boredom. So in between boredom and anxiety rests this flow channel. And where resiliency is the attitude and the mindset that when you recognize you need to increase the skill, you do it. When you recognize that you need to increase the challenge, you do it. And you don't shrink back from it. But the reality is that oftentimes in our culture, we are drunk with this idea that we need to be comfortable. And almost every single chat with Byron we've talked about, if you want to grow, growth doesn't occur. Spiritual growth, personal growth, emotional growth, mental growth, academic growth, no real kind of growth happens when you are 100% comfortable. So resilience is really, it is born in this environment of challenge. It is, sure, we don't want to have difficulties, but life is going to give you challenges, adversity, setbacks. So really, resilience is that inner quality that you decide that you're going to have this skill and you're going to choose to step into this idea of increasing your challenge or increasing your skill so that you can be in a state of flow. And when you're in a state of flow, you are 500% more effective than when you're not in a state of flow. So resilience is absolutely a skill. And if you want to get better at resilience, all you have to do is increase your capacity for accepting a challenge, increasing the challenge, and increasing the skill. And I actually have some tips later on that are going to be maybe even more concrete. But I want you to know that resilience is a skill. Resilience is also kinetic. And again, this just kind of harkens back to the way I kind of see the world. I kind of see the world through kind of like a math and science in some ways. It just the way I just normally think. Kinetic energy is the energy an object has because of its motion. So resilience is also it happens when it's moving. It's a sense of motion. So if we want to accelerate an object, then we must apply a force. If we want to move through a situation, we have to determine to get back into a state of flow. And how this connects to resiliency, we have to increase the challenge or we increase the skill. It's not a matter of it's one or the other, or sometimes and oftentimes it's actually both. But the idea of resilience being kinetic, there's work to do. There's work in order to get your thinking to where, again, also connecting with the idea that it is a skill. There is something you can do. So it's very similar in the concept of mindset. The idea of there are people that are, have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. And let me just see if I can find you a graphic really quickly that would help articulate this. The idea is mindset is something that it's really important to understand. Mindset is a choice. If you want to have a mindset, a growth mindset, then you can. Actually, what might be better if I just simply do an internet search. So that's what I want to do. I'm just going to pull up something here and pull it over and just do a quick internet search, because that I think will be faster, because there's this one particular graphic I'm looking for. So when you think about mindset, and this graphic's going to come right up because it's probably one of the most used on the internet. The idea that people have either a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. We actually have both. And the idea that you're only going to be in a growth state is not 100% accurate. And there are people who have more of a fixed mindset, but they're also not 100% fixed mindset. We kind of go back and forth. But the point is that in order for us to grow, we have to have a different frame of mind. We have to be able to see failure is just an opportunity, where failure is like the end for someone who has a fixed mindset. Failure would be very determinative of helping someone with a fixed mindset to stop or quit. When someone who has a growth mindset fails, it's an opportunity to recalculate and to regather information and to change and adapt, because they can learn to do anything. And a fixed mindset of person says, I'm either good at it or not. So the same is true with this idea, this kind of binary thinking of fixed mindset. It's actually both and. The whole idea of having this idea of resilience, when you have an attitude of resilience that you can bounce back, it's important to understand that resilience is very kinetic. It's also another word I would use is dynamic, because again, once this ball is released, it's going to, the energy that is in the energy that is put forth on this first ball with this kinetic energy, it's going to move through all the other balls, and what's going to end up happening is the very, very last ball is going to move proportionally based upon the amount of energy that this ball was sent. So again, applying a force requires us to do work. Applying resilience is going to require us to do work. And after work has been done, energy has been transferred to the object, and the object will be moving with a new constant speed. So when you understand that resilience is a skill, it's also kinetic. It's also very similar to the idea of a mindset. It's important to understand that resilience is every day. It is what a very current author, Jocko Willink, talks about. He says that discipline is freedom. So when you have the discipline to tap into your resilience, when things go sideways, when life presents itself with these challenges, these setbacks, these adversities, when you have the resilience, in some ways there's like a storage that you can tap into these reserves of resilience, and you can come out stronger as a result of the difficulty. So you're not done. Greg Rochelle says, if you're not dead, you're not done. There's another idea of, I remember an author by the name of David Goggins talked about this idea of 40%, that when you feel like you're done physically, and he understands this personally at a level that most of us don't, because today David Goggins is a ultra marathoner. And let me again, just for the sake of just making sure that we understand who we're talking about. If we do a Google search, and that's what we want to do. We're going to do a Google search, and we're just going to show you David Goggins. He understands this idea of this 40% because David Goggins is today, he's an ultra marathoner. And what that means is that he doesn't run just a marathon, which is 26.2 miles. He'll run 100 miles or 150 miles. So he is someone who, to the extreme, he is able to push his body to the point where when he thinks he's done, he believes there's another 40% left that most people never tap into. And resilience, again, if resilience is a skill and if resilience is kinetic, then David Goggins is onto something. There's more. We have more reserves than we realize. And he would say, David Goggins would say, that when you're at your end, when you're at the very, very end of what you feel like you can do physically, he says you still have 40% left. And that's just something you need to experiment with. But the idea is that resilience says that you have this capacity to bounce back. And ultimately, you are resilient. I love this quote. This is a famous quote from Zig Ziglar, who is one of the great motivational speakers, especially of the 1970s and maybe 80s. You were born to win. And he has a book with this title. But to be a winner, you must plan to win, prepare to win, and expect to win. Because in essence, you are resilience. A human being is resilience. A human being is an amazing, I believe the human being is the apex of God's creation, where we are so incredibly resilient that we will absolutely bounce back. And regardless of the sufferings that we endure, the setbacks that we experience, the adversities that we face, we are absolutely resilient. And then the idea of this concept of stinking thinking, which again is, this can be related to the growth mindset. So the idea of having the growth mindset be kind of in the background as you think about this. I'm just going to put this over here so you can just barely see it. The point is that the way we think actually determines very much how the quality of our thinking. Like if we tend to label ourselves or that we got to be right, or we have to have the last word in. These are just, and you can certainly you can pause the video and take a screenshot of this, but stinking thinking is a real thing. And if you allow it, it can actually have an impact on all aspects of your life. And even it can help you grow the fixed mindset and in some ways the confirmation bias that we all have, everyone has. The point is that in order to, there are ways and strategies and things that you can do in order to kind of arrest that the stinking thinking and the slippery slope that we have. But the idea is that human beings are incredibly resilient, and it's when we lack resilience, that's when we jump into this binary way of thinking. This, it's got to be this way. It's black or white. And a lot of the right now in America, our political landscape with what's going on, even because we have an election this year, it really shows in many ways. It shows the combination of these two things, and along with I would say also there's a lot of fixed mindsetedness. The point is this, and this is just my opinion. When you lack resilience, you believe that these presidential elections are the most important thing in the world because it's all or nothing. That we jump to conclusions. If this president wins, then this is going to happen. And all of a sudden, all of these cognitive distortions just are amplified. And the reality is that human beings are really incredible in what we can do, both positively and negatively. But it's important to understand that when we don't have resilience, what we end up having is we're still human beings, but we're out of balance. And in many ways, we we catastrophize, we assume, we like to think we know what people are thinking, which we don't. We never know what people are thinking, but we like to think we do. We can read that. We feel like we can read situations. Anyway, we just jump to a lot of conclusions, and it's not very helpful. But the cool thing about resilience is that it, in many ways, like I said earlier, it is very much connected to a kind of mindset that, and again, just to remind you, for someone who is fixed mindseted, failure is the end. Failure is like for much of a fixed mindset as person's life, they're actually trying to avoid failure because they feel like a failure. They feel like if they fail, then they are a failure, which it couldn't be further from the truth. Because ultimately, failure is a part of success. And once you begin to understand and see that failure is actually really important. I remember one time this is early on when I was learning I knew how to ski, but I wasn't really, and I never really became a good skier. But I remember overhearing a mom talk to a ski instructor with their son, and the son didn't want to fall. And the mom said, "Well, son, if you never fall in skiing, then you never really learn how to ski." And I think it's very true. And learning to ski and learning to snowboard are very frustrating experiences because you spend most of the time on your bottom, on your butt. And it's especially if it's cold and wet, it can be a miserable day. But failure is a part of it. And if you learn how to fall, and if you learn from falling, if you learn when you do fall, if you learn from it what you didn't do correctly. And again, skiing and snowboarding, in my opinion, are very counterintuitive because you have to lean into something. You feel like if you lean that way, you're going to fall, but you're really trusting the edge of the ski or the snowboard. But failure is a part of it. So when you think about your own life, what are you doing to the point of failure where you can get so good? And again, going back to this idea of this, you want to fail because you want to increase the skills. If your skills are ever increasing, then there will be failures, and so will the challenges. Because if you're never increasing the skill, if you're never increasing the challenge, then you're probably never going to fail. And if you never are going to fail, you're probably not learning. You're not growing. And ultimately, you're not going to be a success. So we have to have a new relationship with failure and positive thinking. That's kind of self-explanatory. And I've talked about, the growth mindset and how important that is. But it all leads to this transformation. I want to spend just a few minutes on this idea. So when we are faced with a problem, there are these three natural choices that we make. If we choose to have hope, natural hope, in the expectation that good will come despite the situation or reality, even in the face of great pressure, opposition, or hindrance, it'll all work out. It'll be fine. Now, I grew up in a family where my mom had a tremendous amount of natural hope. So whenever there was a calamity, a problem, or a situation, my mom would say, "Oh, it's all going to work out. It'll be fine." And as a child, I remember I hated this. So I have like a natural disdain. This is going to sound weird, but I have a natural disdain for hope, for natural hope. Because when my mom said it'll all work out, I wanted to know why. Why is this going to work out? Then there's this another choice that people make. So some people choose the choice when they're faced with a problem, instead of being resilient, they have hope. And they just simply say, it's empty. They simply say, it's just going to work out. And they don't know if it's going to work out, but that's what they say. They don't do the work. The work is to learn. The work is to increase the challenge, to increase the skill. But they don't do that. They just simply say, oh, it's all going to work out. As you can see, my emotion went up there because I connect with this emotionally, because that's the home I lived in, and I hated it. I hated because I wanted to know why, because I was a kid that asked all these questions. Then there are the people that when they have a problem, they choose faint-heartedness. When faced with difficulties or challenges, faint-heartedness is the inability to face or deal with it. You know what those folks do? They fill themselves with something. And again, I also have people in my family who are faint-hearted. And when faint-hearted people are faced with difficulties, they drink, or they take drugs, or they fill their lives with sex, drugs, and alcohol. Well, you fill in the blank. But the point is, problems are ever present. You're going to have a problem. If you choose to be faint-hearted, you truly are. You're giving up. You're giving up, as opposed to being open, remaining open. And to me, the idea of remaining open is this idea of being resilient, of allowing yourself to be resilient. And then this is the one that I struggle with, because this is me. When I have a problem, even when I was a child, fortitude was where I would go, because I'm a grinder. I will grind things out, man. I will work. If you're working hard, I will figure out a way to work harder than you. That's why Kobe Bryant, even to this day, even though he's passed away 4 years ago, he was such an important figure to me, because he was like the emblematic, the example, the exemplar of this hard work that I always aspired to be. Even though he's younger than me, he was like a hero to me. So for me, fortitude, despite the problem, fortitude displays an ability to embrace the hardship for the sake of good. But that's just going to do it all in your own strength. So fortitude is not the solution here. Please understand, even though earlier there was a little intimation that there's a connection between fortitude and resilience. And I don't think there really is, because I think the connection is to openness, to be open. And I'd be happy to elaborate that more. But fortitude is a choice that people make. And it's a choice this is what I make in my natural state, when I just simply say, you know what, I'm just going to work harder. But really the best option to be resilient is to remain open. And what I mean by that, to remain open, it's this idea of going back to the idea that resilience is a skill. It's like a spring to bounce back. It's to have this inner belief that you're going to be able to figure it out. You're going to land on your feet. You're like a cat, and cats are amazing creatures. I see that Alex has joined us, and I know Alex has a cat. He has a very important cat, very beautiful cat. And I love cats too, Alex. And one day I'd like to meet your cat, even though I'm allergic. But if you drop a cat, and I didn't ever do this on purpose, but I've seen cats fall from. I've seen a cat fall out of a tree, and you think, well, there's no way that cat. It landed on it. It landed fine, because they somehow figured out a way to land on their feet. And that's what we do when we have resilience, and when we tap into those resilient stores, the storage or the capacity for resilience. And I could talk. Again, I'm almost done, but I could talk more about how to actually create those storage. Not devices, but storage areas in our own heart and soul in order to become more resilient. But that's it for today, because I got to run, because I got something at 11 o'clock my time, which is in a minute and a half. But thank you for taking the time today. And again, I do want to encourage you to take the predictive index if you're so inclined. I would love to have the chance to walk you through your results. And again, thank you for being with me today and chat with Byron. And we'll be back with you next week. Have a great day. Take care.